Welcome to the Embracing Brokenness podcast, where our goal is to engage with all of those willing to venture deeper into their transformational journey with Christ. Here's your host and co-founder of Embracing Brokenness Ministries, Steve Adams.
Welcome, everybody. It's a chilly day in my little hometown. I woke up this morning and it was 12 degrees. I'm also hearing it's not going to get much better, but that's okay. It's winter. This is what it's all about. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to delve into an interesting subject. Some of you may have heard me talking about this in a prior podcast, but I recently had surgery to repair a torn biceps tendon in my left arm, thankfully, not my right, which is my dominant. What I was doing is I was attempting to load a 325-pound gas stove, well, I had some help with it, but not enough apparently, into the back of our SUV. Now, we did it, but I felt a pop in that arm and knew right away I did some serious damage. And a subsequent MRI revealed that I definitely did. I tore at least a portion of that bicep tendon away from the bone. Not good. So, about 5 weeks ago, I went through successful surgery where they amazingly sutured the tendon together after they tunneled through the bone to anchor the repair. So basically it's fascinating to me when I looked at it online, and talked to the doc about it, they take basically two incisions, one on the inside of the arm, one on the out, reattach it by tunneling it and then suturing it to a bone that they at the base of the upper arm. And then, supposedly, over time, it'll be good as new. I hope. But that's like a 4 to 6 month rehab, okay? Which is a hard thing for a guy who I love to work out with weights, and I'm pretty active. So I wasn't looking forward to this, but I knew I had to do it because I wanted to fix this thing up. But last week, after I was sort of passively being a good guy, sitting on the couch watching Colleen put away Christmas decorations, I boldly declared, I can handle the artificial tree. So I just need to put it in an old yard bag and take it downstairs. We got rid of the box a long time ago until next year. So the first piece went pretty well. I took the top off and I was trying to be careful, use my right arm. And the second one, which is the bottom part of the tree, not so much. So as I was inadvertently reached around to grab the bag that I was, putting it in with my left arm, the one with two scars on it and a freshly sutured tendon, and I shook the bottom half of the tree into the place in the bag, it was like, whoa, this rumbling and multiple twanging effect inside at the base of my bicep. It was indescribable. I hit my knees, probably as much in prayer as I did in pain, crying out, no, Lord, please, no. More times than I can count. I was just like, oh, no, I don't want to do this again. The surgery and the subsequent days of recovery they were harder than I expected. I didn't want to go through that again. They had kind of did a nerve block, and my whole arm was numb, didn't even feel it for a couple of days. It was kind of worked its way back. And I would say this has the potential to be a major setback. Now, I know at present it's a minor one because I don't have the results of a follow-up MRI that I need to get done. But for now, you get where I'm going? The name of this podcast is When Setbacks Happen. Now, that was a physical setback that I believe was also a spiritual one. And it's interesting I should say that, because as we were recruiting prayer warriors to sort of, ask for miraculous healing if in fact I did do something significant, out of the mouth of babes, one of our friends, their daughter, said, well, I'm praying for Mr. Steve that the enemy wouldn't attack him in this. And I was like, oh, wow. That's interesting, because trust me, those days afterwards, I was really depressed. I was down. I was sluggish. I was struggling big time. And disappointment, set in, because I thought, well, how could I do this? Like, this is like the dumbest thing ever you did. But I was feeling pretty good, so I thought, hey, let's do something. Well, not a great choice. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But there are other setbacks in life, right? You've experienced them. How about relational setbacks or career setbacks? Probably every one of us have experienced some kind of financial setback at one time or another. You name it, you have yours, I have mine, I've had many. But I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how should we respond? How do we often respond? That might be different than how we should respond as Christians, but what I love about the Bible is that it's full of examples of folks like us experiencing incredibly difficult setbacks in their life, including Jesus, by the way. Now, at least that was other people's perspective of what Jesus experienced. He knew all along what to expect, no surprises, but he was fully human as well and felt every emotion that we do when life deals us these kind of horrendous outcomes. So let's examine a few and the reasons, I'll say, for that. Starting with David. Okay, so we might all remember the story that David was anointed by Samuel at a very early age as the next king of Israel. And it would be a long time until he would sit in that seat. In fact, one might consider it a setback for David that after King Saul asked him to play for him and help comfort him in his anxiety over his fate as king, Saul turned his back on David and attempted to kill him on more than one occasion. So David was left fleeing for his life as Saul pursued endlessly, it seemed anyway. So many of the Psalms bear witness to David's lamenting over his sort of exile, I'll call it. Well, I'd put that in a setback category, wouldn't you? A setback brought on by someone else, though, right? Or a set of circumstances outside of David's control. But obedience won out. Saul was ultimately judged for his choice to disobey God's commands and set himself up as one knowing better than God. He did his own thing after the plunder. David took over as king until that fateful night on his rooftop, now another story, while gazing over at Bathsheba. Then there are setbacks that are brought about by our own foolish choices. So let's read about this one in 2 Samuel 11, in case you didn't remember the story. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servant with him, and all Israel. And they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rahab, but David remained at Jerusalem. Now it happened late one afternoon when David once arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she had been purifying herself from her uncleanness. Then she returned to her house, and the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I am pregnant." So David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah went out to the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. When they told David Uriah did not go down to his house, David said to Uriah, "Have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing." Then David said to Uriah, "Remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem the day and the next, and David invited him, and he ate in his presence and drank, so that he made him drunk. And in the evening he went out to lie on his couch in the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to his house. So in the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Set Uriah in the front of the hardest fighting and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew they were valiant men. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab and some of the servants. And David, among the people, fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting, and he instructed the messenger, when you have finished telling all the news about the fighting to the king, then if the king's anger arises and he says to you, why did you go so near the city to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, the son of Jerubasheth? And did not a woman cast an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go so near the wall? Then you shall say, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So the messenger came and told David all that Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger said to David, the men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field, but we drove them back to the entrance of the gate. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead. David said to the messenger, thus shall you say to Joab, do not let this matter displease you, for the sword devours no one, and now another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it, and encourage him. When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. And when the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done, listen to this, displeased the Lord. Okay, that was long, but I wanted to make a point. A setback? Oh, I'd say so. But here's the thing. We all get to choose our response to setbacks, even by our own poor choices. That was a really bad choice. So in David's case, he was confronted by Nathan. You can read that story in chapter 12 of 2 Samuel. I won't do that. You read it. Here's your homework. David responded correctly by confessing and repenting of his sin. But there are often consequences after setbacks like these too. Bathsheba gave birth to a son who then died as God judged their actions. Well, not a happy ending. And there were many more like that you could refer to in the Old Testament. I could name them time and time again. But if I were to categorize my reach to bag the Christmas tree, I'd put it in the inadvertent setback category. That was no fault of my own. But when I started to think about this, it's funny, because the other day I was like, I'm taking a shower, I'm thinking about this, and I said, well, that's really not true. I was instructed to do nothing that would jeopardize the successful attachment of my biceps tendon, but I did. So you say, well, Steve, don't be so hard on yourself. Well, I disobeyed the doctor's orders and paid the price, even if it seemed like an accident. Still. Yet I'm still seeking God's rescue. That's okay. The consequences may still be there. I may still need another surgery. I don't know. Stay tuned on that one. But so, how about another one? Remember Job? Remember what happened in his life? Okay, there's 42 chapters in his book to explain what happened in his life. Synopsis: the devil decided to challenge the assertion that Job was an upright man. He was a good man. God gave him permission to do so. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around that God gave Satan permission to have his way with an upright man like Job. I'm not sure I fully comprehend, but I think I understand how it explains a lot of the things that happen in our lives that maybe we don't think we deserve or we didn't expect to happen. But did Job experience a setback? Oh, yeah. Yeah, a big one. He lost everything, including his health. So I'm asking you the same question. Have you experienced a similar thing to that? I mean, this one definitely goes in the category of setbacks not caused by oneself or even others around you. Unless you count the unseen world as others around you. Satan had his way, but Job stood the test. Consequences? Yep. But God restored all he had many times over. All of his physical goods, all of his wealth. But he lost family members. and a wife, well, we don't know the end of that story, who told him to curse God and die. Not sure. So there are consequences, even to things we don't expect, that are going to be setbacks in our life that are no fault of our own. So even others around us that cause these things in our life. And it's hard because we have to be able to get past them and forgive and move on. And so my point in all of this, folks, is that we must always seek God's face in an intimate way when we're faced with setbacks in life. They're inevitable, unavoidable, and I would say to you, guaranteed to happen. I can't imagine anyone that has avoided them one way or the other. Did COVID bring setbacks in life? Yeah, you betcha. I mean, for the entire world, didn't it? In some way. But I can also point to incredible stories of God coming through for so many people in their darkest hours. I'm sure you can during this pandemic. It's amazing to watch how God will rescue, they'll step in and make a difference. There was, and there still is, a reliance on God that is required to sort all this stuff out. We may never know why. Job likely didn't, except to trust God, and that he knew better. I mean, he may not have known why all that happened, but he just trusted him. He just believed in him. He just did. When in doubt, I can honestly say I think a lot of things happen just for our own spiritual maturity. That'll be always be a reason that setbacks occur. I think our response to that will matter, and then we can measure where we are on that timeline. I mean, God will always make lemonade out of lemons, right? If we choose His way. I remember this old Yogi Berra quote. He once said, "We made too many wrong mistakes." And that'll happen to all of us. I mean, God knows that, and He always provides a way through it. So hold on to the hope that anchors your soul. That's God. The hope that anchors your soul. Living the Christian life, it's not for the faint at heart. Well, it actually is in some way, because God does rescue us. He gives us His heart, and will make good on His promises that all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. We have to always add that last part of that verse. The key is called according to His purpose. It's not free of unexpected mistakes or setbacks. It's just a commitment to walk the way of Jesus as Jesus walked the way. So, I have an assignment for you if you're up for it. Write down or just think about the last time you had a significant setback in your life. Heck, it might be happening right now. What was your initial response to that? Is my first question. And there's no shame or condemnation, no matter what it was. It's a response. What was it? I hit the floor. I literally did. And I think it was more about praying that I didn't mess something up than it was, in pain. But secondly, a follow-up to that is, what were the consequences of that setback? No matter whether the consequences were because of bad choices or not, what were they? So, number one, what was the setback? What was your initial response? And what were the consequences? Or you might be in it right now and you don't know the exact consequences. Go back to something else that you can follow through to its logical conclusion. And what were they? And again, what was this time your eventual response? I think a lot of times we have an initial response to setbacks, and God speaks to our heart. He ministers to us. He helps us along the way, and we have an eventual response that's different than the initial response. And then I would say, what did you learn from it, or why do you think it happened? See, it's one thing to just kind of walk through this journey of life and not really understand what these setbacks are all about. We have to get to a place where we allow God to show us why. If he can and will, we don't always know, but if it's available to us, what did we learn from it? And write it down again. Ask God to clarify anything that seems cloudy in there. in this whole process. We're all on this journey toward wholeness, and setbacks are a natural occurrence and with profound opportunity to grow and learn. Just again, like David, like Job, like me, like you. God wants to meet us right in the place we live, in the moment, to work toward restoring all that was lost. So, like the sign out front says, at the mission where my wife works, Colleen works, it says, restored to be restorers. Think about that. We all are restored, so we in turn can be restorers in God's kingdom. So God bless each of you as you walk out your journey with Christ.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, or to subscribe to our blog, podcast, YouTube channel, or engage with us on social media, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org. Thanks for joining us.